$47,000. That's what the average retired public sector worker is about to lose by following the most repeated piece of Social Security advice on the internet. Wait until 70. Bigger check. Win retirement. You've heard it 1,000 times. So has Linda. Linda is 64 years old, retired school teacher, 28 years in a public district in Ohio, 16 years in the private sector before that, paying into Social Security like everybody else. Last March, Linda sat across from her financial advisor in a beige office with bad coffee, and he told her exactly what he's been telling clients like her for 20 years. Wait until 70. Bigger check. The math works. The math doesn't work. Not anymore. And by the end of this video, you're going to understand why Linda's advisor just cost her $47,000 without knowing it. You're going to understand why almost every retired teacher, firefighter, cop, federal worker, and transit employee in America is being handed the same broken advice in 2026. And you're going to understand exactly what changed in January of 2025 that the entire financial planning industry has quietly failed to update for. Two rules died that month: WEP and GPO, the windfall elimination provision and the government pension offset. For 40 years, these two rules took a hammer to the Social Security checks of public sector workers. Teachers losing $600 a month. Widows of firefighters getting told their survivor benefit was zero. 40 years of that. And then, on January 5, 2025, the Social Security Fairness Act was signed into law. The penalties were repealed, gone permanently. Should have been a celebration. In some ways it was. But here's what nobody saw coming. The advice you're still being given. The advice Linda's advisor gave her in that beige office last March. That advice was built on the assumption that those penalties would be eating your check the whole time. Now they're not. The math changed the day the ink dried. The advice didn't. I want you to sit with that for a second, because this is the part nobody is saying out loud. Millions of retired public workers right now in 2026 are walking around with retirement plans built on a calculator that doesn't exist anymore. Their advisors haven't updated the spreadsheet. The books on the airport shelf haven't been rewritten. The YouTube guys are still running 2023 logic in 2026 videos. And public workers are paying for it. In real dollars. Out of real retirement accounts. Right now, let me show you exactly how. Back to Linda. Under the old rules, WEP chopped her benefit. At 67, full retirement age, she was looking at about $1,200 a month. If she held off until 70, $1,500. $300 difference. Over 20 years of retirement, an extra $72,000 for waiting. Her advisor told her to wait. Of course, he did. Anyone would have. The math at the time made sense. Now repeal the penalty. Same Linda, same works history, same everything. Her check at 67 is now $1,800. At 70, $2,200. Bigger numbers. Looks like waiting still wins, right? It doesn't. Because here's what her advisor didn't factor in. Linda would have to give up 3 years of payments to get there. 67 to 70. 36 months at $1,800 a month. $64,800 in checks she chose not to cash. Money she could have used in her late 60s when she still travels, when her knees still work, when she actually wants to spend it on her grandkids and not on a hospital bed. Instead, she'd get a slightly bigger check starting at 70 that won't catch up to what she gave, up until she's about 84 years old. 84. A woman in Linda's demographic has roughly a 50-50 shot of getting there. A man's odds are worse. So Linda's advisor is asking her to give up 64 grand in cash today for a coin flip payoff in 20 years. That's the advice. That's what's still being sold. And it gets worse. I want to stop here and say something out loud that nobody in the financial industry will say. The reason this advice persists isn't because it's right. It's because nobody in the industry has done the work to rewrite it. Updating the math means redoing every retirement plan they've sold to every public sector client for the last 2 years. That's thousands of uncomfortable phone calls, thousands of clients asking why nobody told them sooner. So the easier path is to keep saying what they've always said. Wait until 70. The bigger check, the longevity hedge, and the public workers eat the cost. Now, let me tell you about 2034. The Social Security Trust Fund hits insolvency in about 8 years. That's not me being dramatic. That's straight out of the trustees' own annual report. If Congress doesn't act, and so far Congress is doing what Congress does, which is nothing, every Social Security recipient gets hit with an automatic benefit cut, 20 to 24%, across the board. Picture Linda, 68 in 2034. She listened to her advisor, she waited. She started claiming in 2032, 2 years of full checks. Then the trust fund dries up and her brand new check gets cut by a quarter. Permanently. Her $2,200 a month becomes about $1,700. For the rest of her life, the delayed retirement credits she waited 3 years to earn, wiped out by the cut. She'd have been better off claiming at 65. Meanwhile, her neighbor who claimed at 62, who her advisor probably called short-sighted at the time, has been pulling benefits for 12 years at full strength before the cut hits. He's already banked over $200,000. Linda's 2 years in. That's the bet you're being asked to make. Skip cash today. Bet on a system that's 8 years from breaking. Hope you live to 84. And do all of this because some guy in a book from 2018 said to wait until 70. Okay, before I tell you the next part, I need you to sit down if you're not already. Because this is where I get genuinely angry, and you should too. Under the old GPO rule, if you were the spouse of a public worker, your survivor benefit was almost always wiped to zero. 2/3 of your pension would offset the Social Security check. Total, nothing left. So for 40 years, widows of firefighters, widows of teachers, widows of cops were told by SS employees, sometimes in writing, sometimes over the counter, don't bother filing, you'll get nothing. So they didn't. They buried their husbands. They moved on. They didn't keep records of the conversations. Why would they? Now GPO is dead. Those same widows are entitled to full survivor benefits. Should be a happy ending, right? 40 years of injustice finally corrected. Here's the trap. SSA is only granting 6 months of retroactive payment. 6 months. So if you were told in 2014 that your benefit was zero, and you finally walk into a Social Security office in 2026, you don't get 12 years of back pay. You get 6 months. The rest is gone, permanently. No appeal, no recourse, gone. There are widows in this country sitting on tens of thousands of dollars of uncollected money right now. Month they don't file, more of it disappears forever. If you are a surviving spouse of a public worker, or if your mother is, and at any point in the last 40 years, somebody from SSA told either of you that the benefit would be zero under GPO, stop watching this video, pick up the phone, and file. This week. Not next month. This week. I'll wait. All right. Linda did the math last month. She fired her advisor, got a second opinion, ran the numbers honestly with someone who'd actually read the 2025 law. And she's claiming at 65, not 70. 65. 2 years earlier than her original plan. $47,000 she wasn't going to see back in her pocket over her retirement. Plus the protection of starting her checks 3 years before the 2034 cliff. She's not waiting anymore. When I run the numbers on real public worker scenarios in 2026, Almost all of them land where Linda landed, somewhere between 64 and 67, not 70. Some land at 62. Almost nobody, and I mean almost nobody, should still be waiting until 70 under the post-repeal math. That's not me playing financial advisor. I'm not your advisor. I'm just someone who ran the numbers and got angry about what I found. The reason wait until 70 is the worst advice circulating right now isn't because it's mathematically impossible to justify. It's because it's being handed out like a one-size-fits-all rule to people whose math fundamentally changed 18 months ago by advisors who haven't done the homework. Remember the $47,000 I mentioned at the start? That's the average. Some public workers are losing twice that. Linda almost did. Her neighbor's wife, the one who claimed at 62, she's not the cautionary tale anymore. Linda was, until she did the math herself. Don't be Linda from last year, sitting in a beige office, nodding at advice from a man walking off a 2018 spreadsheet. Be Linda from this month. Pull your 2026 Social Security statement. Look at what your benefit actually is right now, not what it was when Web was still slicing it. Ask yourself honestly whether you're willing to bet on a trust fund that's 8 years from running out. And if anybody tells you to wait until 70 without showing you those two numbers first, they're not giving you advice.